and we're wishing you all a happy 4th of July weekend.
Yeah, no matter how you're celebrating.
Yes.
Hopefully with fireworks.
Yeah, hopefully with fireworks. And depending on this news we're about to talk about, maybe still distancing, masking, that type of thing.
Yeah, it's serious.
Yeah, that's where we're going to begin this morning with these new concerns about a coronavirus resurgence as we head into this holiday weekend.
The CDC says nationwide new cases rose 10% over the last week. A quarter of those cases are being linked to what doctors are now calling the hyper-transmissible Delta variant. The rise comes as millions of Americans get ready to celebrate the 4th of July with pre-pandemic level traffic expected on the roads and at airports. The country is on track to fall short of the president's 70% vaccination goal by July 4th, which is, of course, only 2 days away.
The Delta variant is predicted to be the second most prevalent variant in the United States, and I expect that in the coming weeks it will eclipse the Alpha variant. Any suffering or death from COVID-19 is tragic. With vaccines available across the country, the suffering and loss we are now seeing is nearly entirely avoidable.
Now, AAA predicts that a record 48 million Americans will be traveling over this holiday weekend despite concerns over the Delta variant.
If you're comfortable traveling by plane or going on a cruise, then, have at it. We do recommend, follow CDC guidelines, and it would be better if you're fully vaccinated before you go.
Let's bring in NBC News medical contributor Dr. Kavita Patel. Dr. Patel, who I think would very much agree with that last point that you should probably be vaccinated before you go and do something like that. So let's talk about this. Knowing how fast the Delta variant is spreading, do you think it's safe to travel this holiday weekend? I mean, we just heard there from AAA, have at it. But what do you think? Or are we risking a resurgence of the virus?
Yeah, good morning, Savannah. You are absolutely right that if you are unvaccinated, you should get vaccinated. And if you're unvaccinated, I'll double down and say you are the one most at risk of having not only yourself as an individual be sick, but potentially becoming a spreader and causing the resurgence. So if you are fully vaccinated and 2 vaccine doses or 1 vaccine dose with Johnson & Johnson, you are protected from the Delta variant. What we don't know, Savannah, is, but we believe that if you are vaccinated, that you're less likely or not likely at all to give it to someone, even if you don't have symptoms. But we're still waiting for that data. So I think if you're in a mixed household where you're vaccinated, your kids aren't, or someone else is not, you have to kind of just think about adapting your plans. But if you're fully vaccinated, you can be confident that the vaccine will keep you safe. Now, let's be clear, it keeps you safe from hospitalization and death, which is very important. If you're personally worried about even just being positive without symptoms because you're just concerned about what that means for you as an individual, then of course it makes sense to avoid crowded areas that are indoors with people who you do not know are if they're vaccinated or not, and if they're not wearing masks. So I think that's how you need to approach the weekend. You're safe, but it depends on how much appetite for risk you have as an individual, how safe you want to celebrate.
And doctor, you mentioned those mixed households. So if you are one of those 48 million people that AAA is predicting is traveling and you have, let's say, young kids who are unvaccinated, what are some things that those families can do to stay safe?
Yeah, treat your kids as you would have before you were vaccinated. And that includes you, just because the behavior should be even. You are protected as a parent or family member if you're vaccinated, but they need to be masked. And it's also just a good idea for you to be masked so that they see and model the behavior. They should opt for, if you're in a plane or in a train, they should make sure that they do not take their mask off, even if it's to eat or drink. Try to do that before you get on the plane. And then also try to just make sure you have few points of contact with people who you don't know their vaccine status. That's it. We know that they're enforcing masks at public transportation sites. But Savannah, I've been to airports, you've been to airports. It's not totally even. So treat the situation like it could be high risk by keeping them masked, keeping them distanced. And just remember, outdoors, even if you're taking your kids someplace to celebrate fireworks, outdoors is great. Watching fireworks outdoors, if possible, with open air circulation is the best thing you can do, and to be safe and have fun.
All right. Well, there you go. That does sound fun. And doctor, now as we talk about this and as these concerns with the Delta variant keep getting more and more heightened, we know that we're really seeing these resurgence in these pockets where people are not vaccinated. And at the same time, the U.S. is likely to fall short of the president's July 4th vaccination goal. How concerned are you by that, and what needs to be done? How can we keep ticking up in our vaccination rate?
Yeah, I'm very sobered by the statistics the CDC shared that a third of U.S. counties, that's 1,000 counties in the United States, that have very low vaccination rates, to your point. So I do think that we need to start, honestly, we need to start taking this neighbor to neighbor. You know, we don't need to shame people, but we just need to try to kind of model, I got vaccinated. Hey, have you been vaccinated? Do you have any concerns? Talk about your experience. You don't need to be a doctor to talk about your personal experience. And then also, if that person is willing, I actually would recommend people take them to a site that can get vaccinated. The best way we're going to do this is one-on-one. I also think that any health professionals listening, start asking about vaccine status almost as part of a vital sign. When you're checking a person's blood pressure, asking about their heart, checking their heart rate, asking about any symptoms they're having, just say, and have you had the COVID vaccine yet? And then without any judgment, just start talking through, hey, do you have any questions? So this is a great weekend to encourage Americans to walk into any one of our clinics or pharmacies and try to advocate to help them. And remind people, individualism does not end a pandemic. We're going to do it by acting as a community. And we're lucky, Savannah, we have vaccine, as you heard, all across the country available. But if we continue at this pace, if we do not continue to fight to get more Americans vaccinated and fight the myth and misinformation, there are models that estimate that we could see as many as 32 million more people infected over the next year, and those will largely be unvaccinated individuals.
Yeah, and Dr. Patel, just to push that point one more time, there's also the stat that 99% of COVID deaths right now are in unvaccinated people. Can you just remind us of that importance of the vaccine in terms of it really preventing that serious illness and death?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can just tell you personally, one of the deaths we've seen in our hospitals in the last 2 weeks, all unvaccinated, and even severe hospitalizations, all unvaccinated individuals. So the 3 vaccines that we currently have been almost 100%. It's stunning. I've never seen a vaccine that performs this way. 100% at preventing death and close to 100% at preventing, to your point, serious hospitalizations. So the most common pushback I get when people don't want to get vaccinated, and I cite that statistic, is they say, well, I'm young and I'm healthy. I'm not going to die anyway. And I'm here to tell you, even young, healthy people are part of that statistic. So you are not immune, even if you think you're young and healthy, from the coronavirus.
Part of that statistic, and they are a growing number of that statistic. Yeah. Dr. Patel, thank you so much, and happy 4th.
You too.
Let's stick with the holiday theme here. I'm going to check on your morning news now weather and the 4th of July weekend forecast.
Hello, Bill. Good morning. Happy almost 4th.
Hey, good morning. I'm going to tell you guys right away, I'm burying the lead, and it's going to be at the very end. Okay. I know it's a TV sin to do that, but just telling you right now.
Okay.
I like a surprise.
What do you got first?
So now I got you hooked. All right, so let's get into the forecast. So we're dealing with a lot of heavy rain. We had the horrific storms yesterday around Washington, D.C., the Mid-Atlantic, a lot of cleanup. We're not going to get the severe weather today, but we are watching the heavier rains. If you're traveling from D.C. southward especially, that's where the worst of it is. There's hit-and-miss showers and storms in the Northeast. But over the next couple days, the heaviest rainfall totals will be down along the Gulf Coast, but it's going to be more your typical afternoon showers and storms, especially as we go throughout the late afternoons. You're used to that. Usually on the 4th of July, you get the storms from Mother Nature, then they die off, and then you get your fireworks later in the day. So the forecast for today, you notice the Northeast is kind of cool with the showers. There's the rain in the Southeast with your afternoon storms, and still very hot in the interior West, by the way. That hasn't changed. So let's get to the 4th of July weekend forecast now. Still hit and miss rain on Saturday in the areas of the Northeast. Not exactly great beach weather. We still get the afternoon downpours down along the Gulf Coast, but notice how much of the country is dry on Saturday, looking gorgeous in the Great Lakes, through the Tennessee Valley, all the way through the Midwest. And then on the 4th of July itself, the sun finally returns, claps all around for areas in the Northeast, a little bit of showers and storms down along the Gulf Coast. And then for the actual Monday, the observance day of the 4th of July, looking pretty nice in many areas. But here's where I buried the lead. We are watching Elsa in Florida. on Monday, of all places. So the fireworks forecast, again, not bad throughout much of the country. All eyes this weekend, especially if you're in the Gulf Coast or in Florida. Keep an eye on what happens with Tropical Storm Elsa. This is expected to be near hurricane strength by the time we get through Saturday and Sunday. It's going to cross Cuba, which has some pretty significant mountains, which should weaken it, but we don't know how much at this point. And then it should be somewhere over Florida come Tuesday into Wednesday. And so, yes, Tropical Storm Elsa should be somewhere near Disney World by the time we get to early next week. Wow. That is the lead.
They won't be frozen.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, thanks, Phil. We'll see you next hour. The Trump Organization and one of its top leaders are pleading not guilty in a massive fraud case after being charged just yesterday.
Prosecutors are accusing the company of running a 15-year tax scheme in all the organization, and its longtime CFO, Alan Weisselberg, faced 15 charges, including allegations of tax fraud and allegedly falsifying business records. Prosecutors call it an orchestrated scheme to compensate executives by giving them secret perks off the books so they would not have to pay taxes. Weisselberg turned himself into the Manhattan DA early yesterday morning. He was arraigned and ordered to surrender his passport. Here to break down what happened in that Manhattan courtroom is NBC News correspondent for investigations Tom Winter and NBC News legal analyst Danny Savalos, all helping us make sense of those charges.
Good morning to both of you. Thanks for being here. So, Tom, I'll start with you. Walk us through what happened yesterday. 15 charges here, not just a few. What has the Manhattan DA brought here?
Good morning, Savannah. Essentially, what the Manhattan DA is saying is that they received, as Joe was alluding to, these off-the-book payments. It's completely legal if you were to get a perk from a corporation that's maybe not in the form of a paycheck. So if NBC wanted to give me a car, Chevy Tahoe, they could give me one and I would not have to, and that could be part of my compensation. But where the Trump Organization erred and we're on the wrong side of the law, according to the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, and where Alan Weisselberg ran afoul of the law, according to the DA's office, is they did not properly account for it. They did not properly account for it in the corporation, and Alan Weisselberg did not properly pay his taxes.
So, Danny, this was a years-long investigation that led up to this day in court. What do you make of the DA's case based on what you saw? How strong is it?
Building on Tom Winter's analogy, it's in a way the allegations are even worse than that. It would be like if the NBC brass came to Joe and Savannah and said, hey, listen, instead of your paycheck, just take the money out of the vending machine and we'll lower your salary and just don't tell anyone about it. I mean, that's a silly example, but that's almost what's alleged in this indictment. It's that kind of chicanery and that kind of fudging the books. And by the way, it's not by a lower level employee. In many cases, allegedly, the person signing these checks was the CFO, Alan Weisselberg. So it's going to be very hard for him to claim in court, I saw no evil, I heard no evil.
Right.
I'm not sure how much money there is in our vending machines,
Yeah,
by the way. In case. I don't know if I'd take that deal.
I know. But I mean, the point is really just that it's not like it was like a car as a perk here or there. I mean, that's really what this laid out here. So what, Tom, can the Trump Organization's defense be here? I mean, how are they pushing back against the indictments?
Well, I think Danny's kind of already alluded to the fact that, yes, when you have yourself signing the checks, when Alan Weisselberg was directly involved in this, according to the indictment, when they ran two sets of books, I think that's incredibly incriminating. According to the charges, they essentially had a way of accounting for these gifts and off the books compensation is a whole separate ledger. So I think that that's particularly incriminating. So far, the Trump Organization, who has pleaded not guilty, Alan Weisselberg, who has pleaded not guilty, he's vowed to fight the charges. The Trump Organization has attacked this as some sort of a political indictment, something that the Manhattan District Attorney's Office in court refuted yesterday. But they're really attacking the entire indictment from a political standpoint.
And speaking of politics, Tom, Danny, I want to ask you both a question about how this could impact former President Trump. I'd like to note Donald Trump was not indicted yesterday. Now, here's his niece, Mary Trump, on Rachel Maddow last night.
Unlike other people close to him who are probably extremely nervous, I don't believe Donald will be because he's been getting away with this sort of thing for so long that he must feel immune. because he always has been. These are the kinds of charges that could have been leveled against him and other people in my family decades ago.
So, Tom, first to you, what do these charges mean for the former president?
You know, Joe, the president, based on my reading the indictment, is actually not within the indictment. What I mean by that is when Michael Cohen pleaded guilty, there was a individual one who was publicly identified as the president that really brought him into the charges, brought him into what was alleged there and what Michael Cohen pleaded guilty to. We don't see that here in these court papers. So immediately there's no legal risk. However, what is the potential legal risk now that the Manhattan District Attorney's Office has his taxes and perhaps have somebody who eventually might want to cooperate in Alan Weisselberg? Time will tell.
Danny, what do you think it means for the former president?
How many times in the past 5 years have we said the phrases, the walls are closing in, or this guy indicted knows where the bodies are buried? And yet, like Groundhog Day, here I am again. But I have to believe, after a year and a half, if the New York DA's office had the goods on President Trump, he would have been the ultimate trophy on the wall, and they would have indicted him. If they had that information yesterday, I think we would have seen his name. Maybe they just don't.
All right. Tom Winter, Danny Savalos, the best of the best here to walk us through this. Thank you so much.
Search and rescue efforts have resumed at the site of the partially collapsed condo building in Surfside, Florida. Operations stopped earlier on Thursday because of safety concerns over the building's stability. Also yesterday, President Biden visited the town and told grieving families the country stands with them.
The whole nation is mourning with these families. They see it every day on television. They're going through hell. And those who survived the collapse, as well as those who are missing loved ones. Jill and I wanted them to know that we're with them and the country's with them. Our message today is that we're here for you as one nation, as one nation.
NBC News correspondent Ellison Barber joins us now from Surfside. So, Ellison, this was an emotional day for the president and for the families, largely because President Biden spent 3 hours with those impacted by this tragedy. What more can you tell us about his visit?
Hey, Joe. Yeah, so President Biden started his day thanking rescuers for the work that they are doing, encouraging them to keep going. And he ended the day visiting a makeshift memorial that's not far from where we are standing. The president spent, as you said, about 3 hours meeting with the families impacted by this, just sharing in their grief, trying to comfort them and listening to what they had to say. Biden's own personal grief is something most of us can never imagine. And he, of course, drew on that here as he tried to comfort hundreds of families. Our colleague Mike Nimbley asked the president what he told those families about the likelihood of survivors at this point in time. Listen to what the president said.
One of the things that the local FEMA personnel, as well as the local first responders did, is they took all of the families to the site to see what it looked like up close. And they're all realists. They know that the chances are, as each day goes by, diminish slightly.
We are beginning the 9th day of rescue efforts here. Yesterday, rescue efforts were delayed for about 16 hours after workers were first forced to stop working, stop searching because of concerns that the remaining structure might collapse.
Yeah,
Joe?
Ellison, let's talk more about that after the brief pause yesterday. Rescue operations are now back underway. But just how worried are officials about the building's stability? And also, could Tropical Storm Elsa, which we were just talking about with Bill, hamper their efforts early next week?
Yeah, so officials are watching that storm very closely. Of course, they say that right now they do not expect there to be any impacts, at least through Saturday. But obviously, with a storm like this, they move, things change fast. And it is a big concern as far as the stability of the condo that is still standing. The search efforts stopped because they were worried that the remaining building could collapse. And firefighters actually heard a loud noise in the structure that still remains and evacuated out to the beach. They say it took them about 3 minutes to evacuate evacuate the site entirely. There's apparently a big column that is hanging in the structure that still remains, and officials say that column shifted 6 to 12 inches. They say they also noticed movement of some of the concrete floor slabs in the structure that is still remaining. Right now, the mayor of Miami-Dade County says that they are looking at the possibility of demolishing the structure that still remains, but that's a complicated process and one that could take a very long time if they do end up going in that direction. Joe?
Yeah, and Ellison, it's now been more than a week since the collapse. We know the death toll stands at 18, but 145 people are still unaccounted for. Just with all that in mind, what is the mood like right now in Surfside?
You know, there's a lot of sadness, but there also is still hope. And obviously people know every minute that passes, the likelihood of someone being found alive and pulled from that rubble alive is less and less, but they still seem to have hope here. And maybe the meaning of that has changed a little bit, but it is something that when you talk to people, 9 times out of 10, they still tell you that they still have it, that they are still trying to hold on to it. Listen to what we heard from one woman who lives in this community and was actually visiting the memorial site.
You see loved ones, you see, even though I don't know them, they meant a great deal to someone. And it's hard because you hold on to hope. All those faces are people, are loved ones, they're innocent children.
You know, I was talking to the brother of one of the unaccounted for, one of the 145 people still unaccounted for, and he told me that he still believes in miracles and that right now he needs other people to believe in them too. I think maybe members of this community know that the families right now, they need people to still hope to kind of just get through this, and it seems like that is what this community is determined to do, at least for now, even though, as you said, we are further away from this and still 145 people unaccounted for. Joe?
You understand just how important hope is to those families. All right, Ellison, thanks so much. Appreciate your reporting.
Back.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.